Moving into the defence, so right back we've got Michael Coyote, who just tormented United all afternoon on Sunday. He was up against young Harry Mass, who did not put in a Team of the Week performance, it's safe to say.
Mass was like Roadrunner, and he was hassled all day by Coyote. I'll get my coat.
I'll doff my hat to that one. That was a good one.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Watch More Football. Another week of Premier League fixtures and the race for Europe. Hot supper, in this case the race for Champions League. I'm Cam, that's Ryan. We've also got producer Kel here as well. And you are watching us on the Genreverse Sports YouTube channel. We are the only show on this channel at the moment, so if you like what you see, give us a like and a subscribe. However, we are part of the Genreverse family, and we have our main Genreverse YouTube channel as well, which has got a ton of anime. It's got reviews, reactions, general entertainment stuff on there. Specifically at the moment, if you're into anime, you'll find a lot on there, but if you're not, we've also got the Dragon Reviewed, which was a Wheel of Time review show that was just recently finished, and we have got Andor reviews going on in the Cantina at the moment as well, and you'll also find similar content to that in a written format if, like me, you prefer to read your news and reactions and things like that. I do write for lrmonline.com. I'm one of the writers on there, so does Kel. And our colleague Shoki as well, and a few other guys that write for us too. So we've also got lots of interviews from our interview team on there. Gig, Nancy, those guys, and Stephen doing a lot of interviews at the moment as well, with all the celebs from all over the media side of things. But this show does focus on the Premier League. And really what we're going to focus on this week is the kind of race for Champions League. Last week Liverpool won the title. We've already got our 3 teams relegated, so the race for Europe it's all that's left to happen. For the main teams going for the Champions League, there's a lot still to play for a lot of the teams still in various positions, but even the teams below that, there's quite a lot still to play for as well, because depending on how events go, it could be up to 10th place gets into Europe this year, depending on how things go. So it could be a little bit crazy. As always, though, we're going to start off with our predictions table, and it's been a good week for me, I think, right?
It has, yeah. I mean, we said last week, didn't we? You needed to have a couple of good weeks, and Dave needed to have a couple of bad weeks. Yeah. I'd say you've had an average week, and Dave's had a terrible week, and that's just made things. Just made things interesting. So Dave only scored 2. You top scored by a relative distance on 7. Myself and Mick got 4, and Kyle got 3. Which really, the important thing is that it brings the gap at the top to just 7 points between you and Dave. Now in the group chat, you're slightly pessimistic. Dave is also he's just Dave. He's always pessimistic. So you think it's still done. Dave thinks it's all to play for. If we have 3 more weeks, the same way as this one's gone, then the title's yours, mate. So,
I mean, yeah, but you can't guarantee that that's going to happen, because we don't know what the results are. And obviously, as we get close at the end of the season, what we've found is that we pick a lot of the same things. Unconsciously, we pick a lot of the same results. Yeah. So when we'll see this at the end of the show, but when Dave and I put in our scores completely separately this week, we found out that I think 4 of them were exactly the same. Yeah. So that limits the amount that we can, there's no gamesmanship.
Who came in first? Dave came in first.
I mean, it wouldn't make sense for me to do that, actually.
Yeah.
It's actually, it would be...
Dave has to do is copy your results, doesn't he?
Of course, yeah, that would be the gamesmanship part of it. But it kind of shows you that I haven't done anything, because it actually would be in my interest to just move the scores very, very slightly here and there, just to try and achieve the gap. So, no, but that's the way it goes. And it could still, at the end of the day, I could still end up 3rd, and Mick could end up ahead of me similarly if he gets a few good weeks. And
I mean, Mick's not miles behind you. He's only 8 points behind you. Yeah. But he only scored 4.
I don't think he can catch Dave, but he could catch me still.
Yeah.
Do you think you could catch him?
There's 14 points in it. It's not going to happen. No, I'll be lucky to get 14 points for the rest of the season. Never mind.
He's going to be watching some anime.
Yeah, looks like the forfeit is coming.
Yeah. It's fine. I need something to do over the summer when
when there's less football to watch.
Actually, there's
the Club World Cup?
I'd say for a non-tournament year, there's actually a shitload of football on, isn't there? But we'll get into that at a later date.
Later on. Yeah, there's no point in worrying about that stupid tournament at the moment.
Yeah.
On to Team of the Week then, Ryan. You can talk through it and I'll jump in when. There's not much for me to jump in this week.
I mean, the running joke is that I always shoehorn an either current or ex, or even in some cases future Man United player into the Team of the Week. That hasn't happened this week. We actually originally had an ex-Chelsea keeper who Dave said, no, we don't want him. And the choice was between an ex-United and an ex-Newcastle keeper. And it's the ex-Newcastle keeper who's won out, Matt Sells, who's had an excellent season. He had a good performance against Palace, made a couple of good saves. I have to say, I noticed Dean Henderson for Palace more, particularly in the first half. He had one where Forest were attacking, Palace defender goes to cut out the shot and it just sort of loops up, and Henderson instinctively sticks out a leg, which is what saves it from being an own goal. I thought that was quite a good save in the circumstances.
I think it's probably fair to say it could have went to either of them. But maybe Sells deserves the cap for not getting in after some good performances earlier on.
He's in the running for Team of the Season as well, Matt Sells. So he needs the help, doesn't he? So
Henderson's not really in there.
Henderson isn't. No. Moving into the defence. So right back, we've got Michael Coyote, who just tormented United all afternoon on Sunday. He was up against young Harry Amass, who did not put in a Team of the Week performance, it's safe to say.
Amass was like Roadrunner, and he was hassled all day by Coyote.
Wee.
I'll get my coat.
I'll doff my hat to that one. That was a good one. But yeah, he just bullied Amass all afternoon. He was everywhere. He was popping up in midfield, breaking up play as well. I think Brentford's first goal came from a long throw in from him, and I think he was involved in one of the others as well. It's the first time I've heard of him, but he was the best player on the pitch, in my opinion, against United. And we were well beaten. We put the kids out, but it was Brentford can bully us even with a full strength side. So next up we got Dean Hyson, who helped keep Arsenal at bay when they were on top, and then popped up with the equaliser from another long throw. It was a really good header. I've got to say, I don't think either team played brilliantly in that match. Bournemouth in particular, but Hyson's had a good season. And then next to him, Murillo, who scored a really weird goal last night against Palace. I think he meant it, but it was a weird sort of shot to come in from the edge of the box. I think Chris Wood was trying to shoot, and it sort of goes towards Murillo, and he just sort of sticks a leg out, and it just perfectly flicks and loops over everyone. But because it's Murillo, you sort of think that he meant it.
I think he meant it.
But not only that, but he went off injured towards the end of the match, and then from there, Forest just weren't anywhere near as good. I don't think Palace really got that point.
He's a good player, and he's had a good season. And those two actually, as a centre-back pair, they have to be. I mean, I don't know what the scores are at the moment, but they must be in contention to be the centre-back pair of the season.
Mixed favourite centre-back, Ibrahim Konate, might have something to say about that, but they're definitely up there, those two. I haven't had a look at that for a while, but we will obviously be doing an end-of-season wrap on that. And then at left-back, we've got Mark Cucurella, who I believe has taken his phone and his keys out of his trousers when he's got back home, and he's found Mohamed Salah in there as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah. Mohamed Salah has been found in a few left-backs' pockets this year, but Cucurella is the latest to find him.
Yeah. And Dave is basically saying he should be on to be Chelsea's player of the season, although I think Caicedo's got the official ones, but he's Dave's pick for player of the season for Chelsea. I think he's one of those where, a bit like Harry Maguire, because of how he looks and how he can sort of have a bit of slapstick in him, he gets unfairly sort of categorised. He was really good at Brighton, and then he was part of a disastrous Chelsea season. But he's still a really good player. And And I think it takes a while to rebuild your reputation from that. But he is sort of showing that this season.
No, he's been good.
Yeah. Into midfield, we got Yuri Tielemans for Aston Villa, who he's making a late charge for team of the season because he's been phenomenal the last few weeks.
Yes, and he's
everywhere. He breaks up play. He pings in perfect through balls. He got the goal against, who was it? Fulham they played.
1-0.
Yeah, I think he's Villa's best player at the minute. Tielemans.
Yeah, that's fair. I think in form, one of the in-form midfielders in the league at the moment.
Yeah. And then we've got two midfielders from Chelsea. We've got Romeo Lavia, who's continued his good run of form. Helped Chelsea boss the Liverpool midfield in a way that they haven't really been all season.
The thing with Lavia is, whenever he's fit, he looks perfect for Chelsea.
Yeah.
But he's just not been fit that often. You know,
I have to say though, and I am not the first person to try and defend Virgil van Dijk in any scenario. But Van Dijk went in for a challenge on Lavia, got booked for it. And really, I think the challenge was the other way around. Lavia is chasing loose ball. He goes sliding in, diving in, his foot's off the ground. He gets to the ball first, and Van Dijk just sort of arrives there and they collide. But like, he's not even challenging. He's just sort of stood there and Lavia's foot collides with him. But because Van Dijk got in so late after the ball went, it's Van Dijk who's got the booking, even though Lavia's the one who's really sort of endangering an opponent by diving in like that. I don't know.
I don't remember that one for the highlight. So
it was a bit innocuous, but I mean, Van Dijk was incredulous, as he often is when he gets booked, but I think he had a point in that one. And then Cole Palmer, who was the best player on the pitch Sunday against Liverpool. He got a penalty, but he set up one of the goals and he was just trying Cole Palmer things, which
he just looked back. Really... Yeah, he looked back to his swagger and base. Yeah. He just all of a sudden, which
there was one where he had the ball basically on the byline, didn't he? And he just sort of he had about that much of an angle. He just toe poked it, and it was just like that much the wrong side of the post. To going in. It's that sort of thing which we haven't really seen a lot from Palmer.
A lot of just little things, the way he would turn and make space. He just was all over Liverpool, really, and Liverpool, I think it's fair to say, and Liverpool fans will all say, we were a bit, done. We weren't at it because the league's already won. It doesn't matter or anything like that. But they were poor, and they actually have been. That these performances have been coming for the last few weeks for Liverpool. They've struggled to go over the line a little, but the form's dropped off for sure.
A bit like the last time they won the title. They did the work before Christmas, and they've just been able to sort of ease into it, which is why they didn't quite have it in the League Cup final or in the Champions League against PSG, because they haven't had to be at the same intense level all season. And they've been really clinical. They've been really good. And they're worthy champions. Nobody else can really say that they deserve to win the league this year. But they haven't had to be that good for quite a while now. And obviously, now that the title is done, they really can just ease off. I know, they had a couple of people making their first starts all season. And a couple of people who barely played.
They can medals and stuff like that.
Yeah, Federico Chiesa came on to get his medal, didn't he? But
good time of year to play them. At the moment, they won't want to lose every game from here to the end of the season.
No, I think Chelsea have timed it. Well, I say Chelsea. It was a good time for Chelsea the first game after the title, because there is always going to be that. Whether that continues for the rest of the season. Yeah. And then the front three. So we've got Julio Enciso for Ipswich, just because he scored an absolute worldie to equalise against Everton. I would say, watching it on Match of the Day. When it switched to 2-0 down, it was Enciso who was trying to drag him back into it. He did score the worldie, but he did create a couple of other chances, and he was sort of the impetus for Ipswich getting back into the game. And fair play. You're already relegated. You're 2-0 down, away to Everton. To fight back and get a draw off of that is, I think it's commendable, to be honest. And then up front, we've got Kevin Schade, who scored 2 against United. Again, he bullied another young United defender all game in Tyler Fredrickson. Just is bigger and stronger than him. It was only ever going to go one way. And then we've got Brian Mbeumo, who just gave Luke Shaw an absolutely awful time, and Luke Shaw had a properly poor game against Brentford, which is quite concerning.
He must have watched our show last week, and the discussion about him, and it just gave him overconfidence. Or he
wasn't great in Bilbao, and he wasn't good last night. I
don't think you expect too much.
I worry for him. Oh, Inter have just gone 1-0 up. Ooh.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Not to whoever's watching this, because the game will be long gone by then.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that was our team of the week for this week, and we've got 3 more of these to do. So
yeah,
I would say this was an easier one to do than it has been in the last few weeks, even though most of the games were still a bit.
Yeah, there was a lot of games that just weren't that good, so it was just easy to pick the teams that did play particularly well. I think that's what it was. Like Chelsea played particularly well, Brentford played particularly well. So when you're looking at that way, that's why it was a little bit easier. And I guess that leads us on to a kind of a race for Europe, or specifically the Champions League discussion, because the first thing to note is that in terms of, and Kel can bring up the table and show where they are from second. Arsenal have 67 points, down to really Aston Villa are the only ones. There's nobody in contention below that really for the Champions League level, and it's close. And of course, Arsenal could have completely out of that if they had won at the weekend, but they actually lost, and that kind of drags them back into it. They're kind of catchable now. They effectively need, I think officially they need 3 points, but if you look at the Opta stats, they reckon 68 points gets you Champions League, basically. So to guarantee Champions League, I think Arsenal, all they need is a point against Southampton on the last day of the season.
What goes in Arsenal's favour is that Newcastle and Chelsea have got to play each other, Forest and Chelsea have got to play each other.
Exactly.
And they're all taking points off each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're all taking points off each other, which helps, which helps Arsenal. But I mean, I think second place is up for grabs. I think it's going to be an absolute travesty if City, as bad as they've been this season, still do their normal sort of April-May thing of just being relentless. And
when you look at City's games that they've got left, they're all winnable. I think they will get maximum points, and I do think they will finish second. Because I think Arsenal will drop points.
They've got Haaland back as well. He was on the bench against Wolves, wasn't he? And there's talk that Rodri might return at some point.
Come in for a cameo at the end of the season.
I mean, City are not the second best team in the league this season. It's just they're far from it, but they're gonna.
I mean, do it, you say that, but over, and if you look at our start of the season, like we could theoretically still finish second as well. It won't happen, but especially not after a result this week. But we were nowhere near it at the start of the season. But it all depends who you're playing and when you're playing them and what else is going on at the same time. So the great testament to our league is always, you are where you're meant to be. That's your consistency throughout the season. So if City do get above Arsenal, I think it says more about Arsenal than it does City for sure, but they deserve to be second. It's as simple as that. But it will say a lot more about Arsenal, who were genuinely in a tight.
Although I do think
faded away to nothing.
I do think as well, a lot of these things are skewed by how early the titles won, and especially for Arsenal, obviously the title's only been decided a week and performance levels differ, but Arsenal have basically they seeded the title race sort of mid-March, didn't they? They felt it was a bit too much back then. And their performance dropped. They focused more in the Champions League then. So it does sort of, it is skewed, whereas City are all about trying to rescue, save face a bit. Obviously, they were out the Champions League,
so they just had to focus on the league.
So it is about that as well, I think, because people, it looks like Liverpool are currently 15 points ahead. That's going to be bigger by the end of the season, you'd think, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily that far ahead. It's the main measures of how dominant it is how early was it won, and by how many points at that point.
Either way, I think we all probably think Arsenal will be absolutely. I don't know if they'll finish second or whether it'll be third, but I think they'll be fine. I think we've pretty much established City are going to get into the Champions League as well. So really, it's down to the rest of the teams, which are Newcastle, Chelsea, Forest, and Aston Villa. Newcastle and Forest both drew this week, one each draws, both of them, whereas Chelsea and Aston Villa won. So that's kind of tightened everything up just a little bit from kind of where it was before. However, we have got some big games coming up as well. We'll get them more when we do our predictions, but all this week, and then later on in weeks to come, Forest have still got to play Chelsea as well. Whereas if you look at Aston Villa, they don't really have anybody. But you look at their fixtures and think they're probably going to win them. As well. They are just sort of
grinding out 1-0 wins at the minute. They're not as good as they were earlier in the season.
No.
Forest aren't either. I think they've maybe run out of steam a little bit.
A little bit.
Forest have got 2 quite winnable games coming up. So let me just have a quick look.
You could argue we've run out of steam a little bit as well. So
Forest have got Leicester this weekend. They've got West Ham the following weekend, and you would expect them to get 6 points from that. And then it is basically a straight shootout with Chelsea on the final day at home.
Yeah.
So I think although they've run out of steam a little bit, it's still well within their power to get there.
It's for us. It's almost then a must-win game. We're at home to Chelsea next week. Obviously, if we win that, I think that makes us big favourites. But even if we can draw it, that doesn't. It keeps us in it. It keeps us in it.
I think you need to be targeting a win because Chelsea they look good against Liverpool, but they are still able to be got at, aren't they? But that is a big one. And then obviously you've got Arsenal the following week, haven't you? And that
that's
I just don't think Arsenal are either going to have the season completely over or they're going to have one eye in the Champions League final. So I think that
we've been their bogey team this year. But
not just this year, basically since Eddie Howe has come in. Eddie Howe has been to Mikel Arteta what Jose Mourinho was to Arsene Wenger. But also,
this has been a year for bogey team things to switch as well, because obviously we played Liverpool in the final of the Carabao Cup, and Liverpool have always been a bogey team of ours. They always beat us, and we beat them in the final this year. So, miracles can happen. In terms of another kind of stereotypical game, our game against Brighton was just going the same way as every game against Brighton that we ever play goes. We play better, but we just can't score. And Brighton don't really do much, but somehow score with the only chance they have in the game. And it literally just went that way. Brighton had one shot on target, I think, the whole game. Certainly the first half or midway through the second half, they had only had one shot all game and they managed to score from it. And Newcastle were very dominant, but we just could not put the ball in the back of the net. Ended up being a justly, there was 3 penalties given. 2 were not penalties and they were chopped off, and they were the correct decisions to chop both of them off, and the one that we did get was the correct decision to give it, because basically a defender jumped up and basically went, I'm going to save that shot that's going towards the goals at the moment. I'm not even sure if he got a yellow for that, but he should have. We did manage to get the kind of 1-0 the one each draw. So at least we salvaged something, but it's like I hate playing against Brighton because you just know, I don't know what it is. They just seem to have our number. They know how to defend against us, and we find it really difficult to score against them. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's it really. So I mean, I can go through who Chelsea got. Obviously, they've got the second leg against Djurgården, but they're already basically through in that. But Chelsea have got you guys.
And they play their B team anyway.
Yeah. So they've got you guys this weekend. They're playing Man United Friday next week, and Dave reckons
easy 3 points.
I see. You'd think that they would be able to beat us, but then they weren't convincing against us earlier in the season when I think we were still under Ten Hag, or it was very very early days for Amorim.
Ten Hag could pull off a result against a big team by, and you've said this yourself, by playing in a way that that would work for that squad rather than a good way to play. And
Amarim's done a couple of those, and he has adapted things to the squad as the season's gone on. It's just,
I don't think he'll do it just to get a result against Chelsea.
No, but I would say
in the Europa maybe.
I would say it's still going to be, when is the Europa League final? It might be midweek the following week actually, so he might take it easy. But there is something there where we could potentially, there's holes to exploit in Chelsea on the break, which we are still capable of doing. It's whether we can keep him out at the other end.
I'll be cheering you on anyway for once.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Although that'll mean that Dave will get his prediction right.
Small victories. You can't win them all.
Yeah, I can't believe. Oh, so it is. Yeah, so it's Wednesday the 21st, the Europa League final. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
Oh. Anyway, I mean, I guess it would be maybe a nice segue to go into just talking about that. We will briefly mention the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold has announced that he's leaving Liverpool, and basically we all know where he's going. He's going to Real
I think
Madrid.
he's already announced that it's going to be Real Madrid, isn't he?
He didn't in his initial one, but I think after that I said it was going to be Real Madrid. And I think they're going to try and get him in time for the Club World Cup. And
so that's the page that I've asked Kyle to bring up, is that, Real Madrid, I think they're looking to pay a bit of money just to get him in for the Club World Cup rather than waiting for his contract to expire. I don't see why Liverpool wouldn't take that, to be honest. Unless Trent fancies a rest. But
it's just a no-brainer, really. He was always going to go. I think we all knew what was happening. That's how Real Madrid do business now. I was actually talking to a few people on Reddit, and there was a lot of discussion about how can Real Madrid just keep getting away with this. But actually, it's the way the system's set up that they are the team to exploit that system because they are the most popular team and the most likely to win the big trophies. So it gives them a power that no one else has to go to a player and say, run down your contract and we'll sign you, son.
Yeah, I think that is the proactively telling a player, we're after you in 2 years' time when you're out of contract, that Real Madrid are pretty much the only club who can do that.
Yep.
But I think looking at all the youngest players and keeping tabs on when all their contracts run out so you can do that future planning, I think is smart business, really. Because it does give you the wriggle room to go out and spend 100 million on Mbappe.
It's smart business if you're Real Madrid, but even Man United couldn't do that. Not in the position you're in at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, what we were able to do was they were trying to do the same thing to Lenny Yoro. They were trying to get him to see out his contract at Lille this season and then pick him up. And then we went to Lille and said, "Here, we'll give you a shitload of money." And he's been great for us this season, I think.
Luckily, he was like, "Okay, I'll go," but the player could turn around and say, "No, I'm not leaving. On a new contract." And I think they can do that. So.
I think Trent's a unique one as well because of how ingrained he is to Liverpool. He's a local lad. He's been there since he was a kid. He's won everything with them anyway. It's only really Real Madrid who could get him to do that, I think. He's not gonna run his contract down for PSG. He's not gonna run his contract down for Bayern Munich.
No.
And
we're not Liverpool fans, so we really don't care as far as I'm concerned. We can Liverpool a little bit, so it's all good. But
I would say, I think a lot of the online reaction, and I doubt many sort of Liverpool fans in Liverpool have this reaction, but a lot of the online reaction to him leaving for Real Madrid on a free has been a bit over the top. People feeling personally affronted. As far as I'm concerned, as a Man United fan. If we had a kid come up through the academy, if we had Marcus Rashford come up through the academy, he won as a Premier League, he won as a Champions League, he won as every single trophy he could, and then at 25 he went, I want to do something else now. Crack on, mate. Like, you've done all you can for the club. What's the point of doing it for another 5-10 years?
But see, they see that they are somehow special. And this is just the way
United fans see
themselves.
United don't.
But they're different. Like I do mean that. Like United fan, obviously, there's you two are the two biggest clubs in England, and you have this big rivalry because of that. But they think that they are more special than you guys are, like because they've got more emotional attachment to their club somehow than you guys do, and that they did it all in a way that which we could go into the whole discussion about.
We've had this one before.
Bought their way into the league and all that sort of stuff, but that's not how they revisionist history. So they think themselves in some way special, and therefore a player shouldn't do what is stupid.
I mean, we had similar with Ronaldo back in the day, and you know, I was a lot. Beckham was more, he'd fallen out with Fergie, so Fergie was quite happy to see him go.
To be fair, it was,
Ronaldo was, you know, Real Madrid had been talking about him for a year or two beforehand, I think.
Yeah, and Ferguson agreed to get him to give you one more year.
But I was a lot younger at the time. I wasn't necessarily as plugged into the wider fan base at the time, but I don't remember there being too much ill feeling towards him going. And when he came back to Old Trafford with Real Madrid a few years later, he got a good reception, and obviously he came back to the club as well.
Yeah.
The main issue was we got a load of money for him, and we spent it on Gabriel Obertan, Michael Owen, and Antonio Valencia. But that's another thing.
yeah. Well, Valencia wasn't too bad. But so, you know, Liverpool fans might be upset, but this is unfortunately, unless you are Real Madrid or Barcelona, you can get players poached by those two clubs. They do sit just a slightly a tier above everybody else, even the biggest English clubs.
I mean, even, do you know what? Madrid is just a nicer place than Liverpool anyway, to be honest. And I know Trent doesn't live in actual Liverpool city centre.
I mean, you can have a swimming pool in your own house in Madrid.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you just can't get that in, you know, Manchester or London even. But
anyway. Interesting to see how it goes, and it's good to see another English player go overseas. It's good to see that English players are valued overseas.
Yeah, you do get a lot more of it now than you used to in the past, I think, for sure. So on to kind of European or overseas then, obviously we've got one semi-final that's going on as we're recording this, which was an absolutely fantastic game last time. Inter versus Barcelona. Ended up 3-3 at Barcelona. What a game it was. Just one of those.
Absolutely mental.
You just watch it. I mean, even if you don't like football, you'd enjoy what you're seeing.
If I'm going to be watching anime for Kyle, we need Kyle to give us his honest review of that game, if we can send him the highlights, or even just the full match, because it was just ridiculous.
What was the final score?
It was 3-3.
Oh God, that sounds so boring.
Every goal was
world class.
Though. I mean, apart from maybe one, the rest were just beautiful goals.
3-3 sounds exciting. It's way better than,
but it was
0-0.
No.
But it wasn't just the fact that it was 3-3. It was the way it swung as well.
Yeah.
Just I would recommend
pure
you see
drama,
that out.
Pure football drama, and it's just one of the things that you love to see as a fan, especially when your club's not involved and you can just enjoy it and don't care who actually wins.
Absolutely. I mean, Inter are 1-0 up. I haven't been paying massive attention to it, but
Inter have never lost a Champions League knockout tie at home.
Right. Ever. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure that's true, but okay.
I think it is. They said it at the start of the show.
I thought they were on an unbeaten run in Europe at home, but no,
I don't know if I don't think that counts with league phases and stuff like that. I think it's only knockout phases. They've never lost a home tie or something like that. So
they're 1-0 ahead going into half time. Well, not quite half time.
We'll see what happens. There could be more drama as we go. Yeah. Tomorrow night we've got Arsenal versus PSG, and that one PSG are winning 1-0. It's now at PSG's place. You've got to fancy PSG in that one, haven't you?
It's got to be PSG. Yeah. Arsenal got Thomas Partey back, which will help the midfield, but I just, they weren't good. They weren't good last week. The goal came from Kvaratskhelia being basically given the entire, left-hand quadrant of the pitch to himself 4 minutes in, and if you're doing that, you just can't cope with them.
But then, if Arsenal do get through, there's a chance here. Is there no chance here, like the English having 7 teams in the Champions League this year or something like that? If one of yours wins the Europa League.
No, because I think
already qualify anyway. Because I think they changed the rules, didn't they? Or something
because Arsenal would get it. So I think if Arsenal fell out of the top 5 and they won the Champions League,
it had to be that, did it? Right,
because they get the Champions League place for winning the league. But I think because Arsenal are already in, they're in a Champions League place in the league, I think that just stays there. But obviously we get the extra Champions League place by winning the Europa League if that happens. But that's it. So we'd have 6 teams in the Champions League next season.
Yeah. On to those games. I mean, we don't need to talk too much about Spurs. They kind of narrowly. I think they should have won more comfortably. 3-1, but it wasn't that good in the end. And I think they have a tough game because the mixed game's on a plastic pitch. And,
that's the thing. Is 3-0. I think the tie is dead. 3-0 to tie. The tie is dead. 3-1 makes it a bit interesting because you can totally see Spurs losing 2-0 to a well-organised team on a plastic pitch, especially because Bodo Glimt had a lot of their best players suspended for the first leg, which they didn't realise was going to happen. Those players are going to come back
because they're not used to being in this level of
competition. It's a shame that away goals isn't a thing because that would really make it spicy for them, wouldn't it? I don't think
it's guaranteed, but they should.
Spurs will probably go through, but there is definitely some interest there. I mean, I recorded a short over the weekend reacting to our 3-0 win over Athletic Club in Bilbao. That was a ridiculous game. Comfortable. Yeah. It was. Well, the first half an hour we weren't good, and then Harry Maguire turned into prime Thierry Henry, basically, and I don't know, prime David Beckham. He just,
There's a bit of George Best in him there.
He turned the Bilbao fullback inside out and then put a cross on a plate for Ugarte to nod it on to Casemiro. It was a really good move. We then, a couple of minutes later, had another really good move, which resulted in a penalty and a red card. And then from there, it was only going to go one way. And we saw the game out really well. We didn't give him a sniff after that. And I thought the Williams brothers, Inaki Williams had a good game in the first half. Nico Williams, who's sort of the more hyped one, I can't think of a single thing he did all game, to be honest.
Didn't much at all, did he? Which was strange. I was really just not impressed by Bilbao. No. And I did say to you that I wasn't impressed with him when I watched a little bit of the previous tie against Rangers, because I think Rangers are a very poor team this year. And Bilbao beat them, I think, 2-0 at home, but they played Rangers at
Ibrox. I think Rangers were down to 10 men for like 80 minutes of that game, and it was 0-0.
0-0.
That's not good
just
enough.
Bizarre. And against you, who are not having a good season, and I thought you looked the better team. You just looked the better team for most of the game anyway. So you've got to fancy your chances of getting to the final. I mean, almost there.
Almost. I don't want to necessarily say we're 100% there just because of what happened against Lyon. But if we're not silly, we'll be through. That's the thing.
Play a good game and don't you don't need to win the game. That's the thing as well. You just kind of need to be solid and trying to control the game and be a threat.
Just the same way we played the second half of that game, where we just knocked it about. Obviously, Bilbao will have to come on to us in a way that they didn't in the first leg, because they were really damage limitation for the second half in the first leg. And then we can, we've got Garnacho who can hit on the counter. We've got Ahmad who we can bring off the bench. So there's something there. I
do fancy it to be a you and Spurs final, which is a meme in itself. This year,
it is. I don't like it, to be honest. I don't like it. We've got to this point in the Europa League by bullying a bunch of soft, frail European teams. I don't like us playing against an English team.
Now you can bully a soft, frail English team.
But they've done that. They've pulled our pants down 3 times this season. So, I don't like it.
Yeah,
and we've comfortably seen off Bodo Glimt already once this season. Inter have got a penalty, by the way, right on half time.
Jesus, could be. Well, I say it could be over, but
they were 2-0 up in the first leg as well, weren't
they? You never know what Lamalo do in the second half.
And then I suppose the other one is obviously the Conference League. Chelsea are 4-1 up against Djurgården. They're through. And then the other semi-final is Real Betis, who are Anthony is just driving them forward at the minute. They're 2-1 up against Fiorentina. So you'd expect
Chelsea will still be favourites, whoever they play in the final with those teams as well. But they're able to get through with their B team at the moment, Chelsea, and still easily winning a semi-final or a European competition. So it shows you the kind of. I think the English teams are always going to be a bit too strong in that Conference League, to be honest. They really should be winning it every year, because
West Ham won it.
Has the strength and depth of England.
West Ham won it didn't they, a couple of years ago? Villa will have been really disappointed not to have won it last season.
Yeah, they should have.
They really got found out by Olympiacos. I think they probably just thought it was going to be a bit too easy against Olympiacos. It's all kicking off now in the Inter-Barca game.
Anyway, we'll go on to our predictions for next week. We've talked about the biggest games coming up already a little bit, so we can kind of just have a little look at what we've all went with. Dave's, of course, went for his usual Chelsea will get beat because he always does that.
Yeah.
Mick's went for that as well because he fancies Newcastle to win. I've
gone for Newcastle as well, and so's Kyle. You're the only one who's not seeing it.
Yeah, because I just don't think we're playing that well, and I think Chelsea are playing a bit better, and they played well at the weekend. I think it's a tough game. I think we would be fools not to be frightened of Chelsea at this point in the season when they've got everything to play for, and they need to get into the Champions League for money. So and also as years of being a pessimistic Newcastle fan, and we was always failing at the final hurdle, it's weird to think that we don't do that now. You know what I mean? And we won't do that. So
I have got a lot of scores. So for those of you that don't know, some days I get, when I do scores, I get them in. Usually first, I don't send them into their group chat. But I've got a lot of scores that others had picked, or at least winners. I don't see a lot I could differentiate. If I do well, a lot of you guys are going to do well.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a couple of games where teams are very sort of evenly matched, and then everyone else there's a clear stronger team. So Newcastle Chelsea could go either way. Bournemouth Villa could go either way. Liverpool Arsenal, we don't know which version of either of those teams are going to turn up.
That could be a daft game actually, but it means nothing.
We've got a massive game in the race to not be 17th, and that's Man United versus West Ham. And again, I
fancy you to beat them.
I mean, we should, but equally, I think if we go through comfortably on Thursday, we can play a bit of a stronger team, and then we should beat West Ham. If we go into sort of self-preservation mode, if heaven forbid we go through extra time on Thursday, which I'm not sure I can take, then he might play another kids team, but then West Ham are just not very good either. So.
Yeah, no, they are where they are, and you guys are where you are for a reason. Yeah, so it's gonna be
I've gone for us winning, just because they're not one of those teams where I think we're going to be bullied physically. They've got a couple of players who can hurt us, but I don't think they're particularly physically strong. They haven't got necessarily the pace or the sort of muscle. Let's say a Bournemouth or a Brentford do. So we'll see, but we could just
poor season for them this year as well. Let's face it. They did not expect to be where they are.
They moved on. They moved on from Moyes, and they've gone backwards.
Definitely,
Lopetegui was not the right choice, and then they brought Graham Potter in. He hasn't really signed any players. He's not really. I can't tell you what he's done differently. I can't tell you what West Ham trying to do. To be honest, so
I don't know. I think we need to give him a bit of time, but I don't think he's been impressive so far. Anyway, but we'll see what happens. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's about us then. So we've got one thing which is our shit house of the week, which we don't always have, but we do have a little bit this week.
I mean, for copyright reasons, obviously we can't show you the video, which is a shame because it is a fun video. But we've only got a few more of chances to see Jamie Vardy shithousing in the Premier League because he's leaving Leicester at the end of the season. But what happened in their game against Southampton was a Leicester player had just sort of been running past the referee and just sort of accidentally nudged him in the head with his shoulder. The ref's gone down. Southampton have got the ball and they're breaking up the other end of the pitch while all the Leicester players are going looking after the referee. So Vardy, not concerned for the referee's well-being whatsoever, he just sees Southampton are breaking, so he picks up the referee's, who's nearly unconscious, he picks up the referee's arm, grabs his whistle and just blows it to stop play. Referee gets subbed off, new referee comes on, play continues, but Vardy was quite open afterwards. He was like, he was only interested in stopping the Southampton break. He, obviously he needed to stop play for the referee to be looked after, but that was not his his intention at all.
Oh, it was a good one. It was a good one. It
And
reminds me of Gaza when he played.
Only
for
Jamie
Rangers,
Vardy could do
the
that.
Yellow card. Back to the referee dropped his yellow card, so when Gaza gave him it back, he like pretended to give him it, and then the referee did the worst thing ever and went, "You're getting a yellow card for that." And like everybody was just like, everybody all over the world that watched that was like, wanker. There was just no need for that. That was just a bit of banter. Did no harm at all, but that's how it goes. At least Vardy got away with it. So that's us for this week. We will be back next week. We were talking to the other guys, and we're going to try and get at least Dave and Mick on for the final one of the season, if you like. Maybe not the last week game, but maybe the one after that or something, so we can wrap up all our season's events. We'll see how that goes. We've still to establish if Mick can be available, but we'll try and do that for you guys anyway. But Ryan and I should be back next week, hopefully happier than we are right now.
I mean, one other thing to say is I'm going to Wembley this weekend, so the guy that's been coming with me to Hampton Waterlooville this season is actually an Aldershot fan, and they have reached the FA Trophy final, which means they're playing at Wembley for the first time in their history. So he's dragging me along to that, which should be an excellent game. They're playing Spennymoor Heath or something like that. So I'm going to miss all of the games on Sunday doing that, because I'll be at Wembley.
Still my beating heart.
I know. It's not what you know, it's who you know, Cam. And
I know. You're lucky devil. Well, that's us for this week. Thanks for watching. As always, if you like what you saw, give us a like and subscribe. If you didn't like what you see, or you did, leave us some comments as well if there's anything you would like us to do a little bit differently, because that would be cool as well. Other than that, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.